Who the Hell Did I Rent From Part 3. I just want to point out that we had been told it would be 5 days of work. It had now been 25 days of active work plus a month where we had lived in the unfinished house. So it was a total of over 50 days of disruption, throughout which we were not only paying our full rent, also had an additional over $4,000 of out-of-pocket expenses. And my husband and I keep coming back to this question of how much did our landlord know? A few things happened that made us think that he did know that this was a huge risk. First of which, the comment he made on the first day of work saying his wife would never have agreed to this. Second was that in one of my conversations with him, I was like, when is this going to be done? What's going on? And he was like, you think this is slow, but for Miami standards, this is very fast. And I said to him, well, if this is fast, we're on day 20 of the work. You said it would take 5 days. Why did you think 5 days was reasonable if 20 days is fast? When we spoke to him throughout this whole drama, he would say multiple times that one of the reasons he left Miami is because the workers are unreliable. I'm thinking, if you knew all of this, so much so that you left the state for this reason, why would you have given this as an option to us and not really communicated the risks? So we get back to the house, and two additional things. Our new TV was scratched. We had a table that was broken. We told them this, and as for the TV, they were like, it wasn't our workers. What could we do? We couldn't prove anything, but we knew that the scratch had not been there before the work commenced. And with regards to the table, the landlord sent his house manager to repair the table. The guy came, left, the table was still broken, but we felt super uncomfortable continuing to ask them to fix things. Another thing to note is that at this point, there were 4 occasions that the house manager was meant to come and repair the kitchen door that was still not working. This wasn't just like a week that this wasn't working. This was months that we lived without this door working, where they'd say they'd come to fix it and then they would not come and fix it. We also kept getting like random messages from the owner saying that people were coming to finish up additional pieces of work, and I kept asking, when is it done? Like, can you tell me when this is done? And honestly, like as I said before, a lot of the times he would just not respond to me. So it was around this point that we started thinking, we feel very uncomfortable. Is it worth us cutting our losses and finding somewhere else to live and just paying whatever we have to pay to get out of this situation? So I checked our contract, and our contract basically said that if we were to end the lease early, we would have to pay 2 months of rent. My husband and I were like, you know what? It's a lot of money, but we will pay that to get out of this situation, because I've never related to a Taylor Swift lyric more when she says, I'd rather burn my whole life down than listen to one more second of this bitching and moaning. That's where we were at. So the way that our contract was worded was a little bit ambiguous. The way that we had interpreted it was that we would pay that 2 months of early cancellation fee, and then whatever month we were in, our landlord would keep that money. So if we left on the first day of our contract renewing for that month, he would keep the rest of the month even if we weren't there. If we left the day before it renewed, he couldn't seek additional rent. He could only have the money that he had from that month and the 2 extra months termination fee, if you see what I mean. We asked the landlord, would you be open to us paying the early cancellation fee and prorating like 10 days, because we are going to be leaving early. We don't need the full month. If that's not possible, we will try and leave ASAP. The date of our rent renewing was approaching. I think we were like 4 or 5 days out. Like, this all happened very fast. And guess what? The landlord did not respond to us for a few days. So after not responding to us, he was like, oh no, you owe me another full month's notice period. So you actually owe me 3 months of rent. So my husband got in touch with him and was like, we'll pay the rent, but this is extremely unfair given everything that we've been through. The landlord responded and said, I'm not going to dive into what is or has been fair for either of us, but you can read this part of the contract. So let me tell you, my husband was livid. It was like, we've paid money out of our pocket for this guy. He's done his work with us living in this mess for a week, paying full rent. And now we're offering to give him 2 months rent and prorating 10 days, and he's demanding another full month's rent. And let me just say that my husband and I are landlords. We've had instances where our tenants have wanted to leave early. We've always said, if we can get the place rented when you want to leave and there's no loss of income, then we won't charge you anything extra. Like, keep your money, it's fine. Like, we always try and be fair. But again, we wanted to give him the 2 months cancellation fee and prorate the last month, and he was insisting that we pay him another full month. It just felt, given everything that had happened, just like massively, like hugely unfair. This was the straw that broke the camel's back, and my husband was like, I've had enough. So he wrote a letter to my landlord. We wrote it together. It was like a 5.5-page letter documenting everything that had happened, all the expenses we'd had, the inconvenience of doing all this with a newborn, how he had let us down. And I'm sure that there's a version of this story where we're the assholes, but I keep replaying everything that happened, and I can't identify a thing that we did that was assholey. This work was not mentioned to us when we were looking at the house. And if you remember part 1, I mentioned that there were 2 houses we were considering. If they had told us when we were viewing the house that there was major works planned, we would have gone for the other house. But they didn't tell us, and we didn't know. They waited until we had signed the contract to reveal to us what we had actually signed up for. It was at this point that I was like, all right, you think we need to read our contract? great, like I'm gonna read the contract line by line. And a huge challenge that I came up against when I was trying to build a timeline of what happened was that there was very little paper trail. As I said before, our landlord hated to write things down. If ever we wrote to him, he would call us. So even him saying that the work would take a week, the only written proof I had of that was me texting him saying, hey, do the workers have a confidence level that the work is going to take a week? To which he did not respond. And the other thing going for us was that obviously I was pregnant. Like, what sane person would agree to this work thinking that it would run into them having a newborn baby in the house? We genuinely were making choices thinking that it would be done before the baby arrived, because that is what he told us. As I said, I was like, great, I'm gonna read the contract. Let's see what happens. And a few things that I found. First of all, our contract said that if the house had been left untenantable and the tenants had stayed in situ, the rent should be reduced. So the week that I lived there in the mess, pregnant, while they were doing the works, we should have had reduced rent. And not only that, but the month that we lived there with things unfinished, we should have also been paying reduced rent. Not only that, but it said that if you had a house that was untenantable and the tenant had to leave because it was so untenantable, what a word, untenantable, the tenant shouldn't have to pay rent. So the time that we were staying in Airbnbs and continuing to pay full rent on top of contributing to the Airbnb, we should not have been having to pay rent. Our contract said that if there was a repair issue that had been notified to the landlord and it hadn't been repaired within 7 days, we could end our tenancy effective immediately, i.e. not have to pay any kind of cancellation fee. We had written to our landlord about the door several times. As I said, there were 4 occasions they were meant to come. They kept canceling on us. And so we had a pretty good case, I thought, to fight this from a legal perspective. And not only that, but there are very strict rules in place in Florida around suing for, it's called negligent issuance of emotional damage, NIED, and it's basically emotional damages. They have very strict rules about what can apply for that in Florida, and we 100% would have met the criteria to sue for emotional damages. Another thing to add is that because we had to pay for that full month's rent, we paid up until August 15th, and we were seeing them advertise the house online as available from August 1st. This wouldn't be a problem if the landlord had told us, hey, if I get it rented out, I'll give you your money back, like we'll prorate it, whatever. He never said any of that. So to us, it was very clear that he was trying to double dip. He was trying to take our money for the full month's rent, take our 2 months early termination fee, and then get a tenant in before our tenancy had technically ended. So he was trying to make as much money as he could. And again, when I saw this, I was infuriated and I screenshotted it. And I'm so glad I screenshotted it, because when our lawyer got in touch, they took down the listing, funnily enough. So we've paid the next month's rent. We then emailed the landlord and said, hey, we're moving out. Our lawyer's gonna be in touch. Now, on the point of the lawyer, actually, I'm gonna make this into a part 4 because I think I'm probably gonna run out of time. So I'm gonna post part 4 right after this. I'm gonna film it now. So go check out part 4 if you wanna hear the end of the story.